I met her the day the washing machine in my unit finally gave up. It was a Thursday, the kind of gray, nothing special Thursday where everything feels like static. I carried a basket full of damp clothes down to the shared laundry room, earbuds in, pretending I had somewhere more important to be. She was already there. Back turned. Sleeves rolled to her elbows. The hum of a dryer filled the silence between us. "Machine 2's acting up again," she said, without looking. Her voice, low, even, carried that tone people use when they've been through too many small disappointments to be surprised anymore. "Yeah, I noticed," I said. "Guess I picked the wrong time to do laundry." That made her smile, not wide, just a small crease at the corner of her mouth. She turned then. Brown hair tied back, reading glasses hanging from her collar. Older, obviously. But she had that kind of presence that made the room feel arranged around her. She studied me for a beat, like she was trying to place me. "You're the one in 3B, right?" "I'm Hannah. I own the building." Her words landed like a key turning. "Right. I'm Leo," I said, setting the basket down. "Sorry if the rent's late last month," she waved it off. "It wasn't. You just forgot to put your name on the envelope." I laughed softly, more out of nerves than humor. The dryer buzzed. She opened it, pulling out warm towels that smelled faintly of lavender detergent. The air between us felt charged, but not in any movie kind of way, more like quiet awareness. I started noticing her after that. In the mornings, through the frosted glass of her kitchen window, a silhouette pouring coffee. Sometimes, when I left for work, she'd be tending to the small plants near the stairs. She'd nod, maybe say morning, sometimes nothing at all. But every time, my chest tightened, that strange blend of curiosity and restraint. She remembered things. My job. My schedule. Once, she left a thermos on the stairs when she saw me rushing out, late again. "You look like you forgot breakfast." It was just coffee, but it wasn't just coffee. One night, around 10 p.m., there was a knock on my door. I opened it to find her holding a small cardboard box. "You left this downstairs," she said. "Thought it might be important." It was just a set of old sketchbooks I'd ordered online, nothing urgent. But she stayed there for a moment, glancing past me like she wanted to say something else. "Do you draw?" she asked finally. "Used to," I said. "Not much lately." She nodded slowly. "Maybe you should again." There was something about the way she said it, not advice, not kindness, just observation. Before I could think of a reply, she added quietly, "You remind me of someone I knew. He stopped doing the things that made him happy too." And then she left. Later that night, I opened one of the sketchbooks. The paper smelled new, untouched. I didn't draw anything. I just sat there, pencil in hand, staring at the blank page like it might say something first. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from my girlfriend, short, casual, the kind you send without thought. But right below it, another notification blinked. A new message, unsaved number. "This is Hannah. You left your hoodie in the laundry room. I'll hang it on your door tomorrow. Also, no wonder she chose you." I reread it twice. Not sure what she meant. But something about the way she said it, it didn't feel like small talk. It felt like the beginning of something neither of us had planned for. The next morning, my hoodie was hanging neatly on the doorknob, washed, folded, and smelling faintly of her detergent. A small yellow note pinned to it read, "Don't let the laundry eat you alive." It shouldn't have mattered, but it did. It was the kind of small care you don't expect from anyone these days. When I saw her later that week, I meant to say thank you. But the words got tangled somewhere between politeness and something heavier. It was raining that evening. I was carrying groceries up the stairs when I saw her kneeling by the window in the hallway, struggling with a stuck latch. "Need help?" I asked. She turned slightly, strands of hair sticking to her cheek. If you don't mind. The window finally gave way with a creak. She sighed in relief. You've got a good touch for old things. Guess I've had practice, I said, and for a moment we both smiled at nothing. She noticed the grocery bag in my hand. You cooking tonight? Trying to. It's cheaper than takeout. I have some leftover soup, she said. If you don't mind something made by someone your mother's age. It was meant as a joke, but her tone caught slightly at the end, like she wasn't sure whether it landed. I didn't hesitate. I'd mind if it wasn't good soup. That made her laugh, quiet, surprised. We ate in her small kitchen. The place was warm, soft light spilling from a single lamp. A plant leaned toward the window like it was eavesdropping. She told me she used to cook for two, her daughter and her husband, but now it was just her. Divorced, she said plainly, stirring her tea. You start measuring time in meals after that. How long since someone else used this cup, that plate? I didn't know what to say. I just listened. She looked up. Sorry, I didn't mean to unload all that. It's okay, I said. It's nice to talk to someone who doesn't start every sentence with, bro. That got another laugh, softer this time. There was a silence afterward, the kind that isn't awkward, just full. I found myself studying her hands. Small lines. A gold ring mark that had long faded but never fully left. She noticed me looking and set the cup down. You're quiet, she said. Just thinking. About what? About how some people make loneliness look gentle. Her gaze lingered on me for a beat too long, unreadable, but not cold. Then she reached across the table and brushed away a grain of rice from my sleeve. Messy eater, she said lightly. It was such a small gesture, it should have meant nothing. But it did. It meant everything. The moment stretched, her fingers hovering just a second longer than they needed to. Then she pulled back, eyes soft but distant. Eat before it gets cold, she said. I nodded, pretending that was all I wanted to do. But that night, when I closed my door, I could still feel the trace of her touch, a quiet pulse that refused to fade. For a week after that dinner, things went quiet. I still saw her sometimes, on the stairs, outside tending to her plants, passing me in the hall, but she didn't linger like before. Her smiles were brief, polite. The kind you give to a neighbor, not someone who'd sat across from you while confessing the soft ache of solitude. I told myself I imagined it, that maybe she was just busy. But there was something about the way she avoided my eyes that made every casual encounter feel like a loss. One evening, I came home early from work. Rain again, the kind that soaks through your sleeves before you even lock your bike. The hallway smelled faintly of detergent and basil. I heard her voice through the half-open door of her unit. No, I'm fine. Just tired, she was saying to someone. Then laughter. A younger voice, familiar. When I turned the corner, I froze. It was Mina, my girlfriend. She was sitting at Hannah's kitchen counter, sipping tea like she'd been there countless times. And maybe she had. I just hadn't pictured the overlap, hadn't imagined the quiet life I'd been noticing through Hannah's window intersecting with mine. Mina spotted me first. Hey. I was just visiting Mom. Mom. The word dropped between us like something sharp and irreversible. Hannah turned at the sound, her face perfectly calm, though her hand tightened slightly around her mug. Leo, she said softly, as if testing whether my name still belonged in her mouth. You're home early. I nodded, managing a quiet, yeah, though my throat felt dry. Mina reached over to pour me some tea. We were just talking about you, actually. Mom says you've been a good tenant. Doesn't she, Mom? Hannah smiled thinly. He keeps the place quiet. Nothing more. Nothing less. But her eyes flicked toward me, just once, enough to say everything we couldn't. After Mina left that night, the building felt smaller. Every creak of the floorboards, every faint sound of running water, carried her presence. Around midnight, there was a soft knock. When I opened the door, she stood there, her cardigan pulled tight around her. "I didn't know she hadn't told you," she whispered. "About me?" I shook my head. "It's okay." "It's not," she said. "It changes things." Her voice was steady, but her eyes weren't. They flickered like a candle in a draft. We stood there, the hum of the refrigerator somewhere behind us. "I shouldn't have texted you that night," she said. "It was careless." "It wasn't," I said before I could stop myself. Her breath caught, just barely audible. "You're young, Leo. You don't know what carelessness can cost." She stepped back, like she needed distance to breathe. But before she turned away, she reached up, just briefly, and fixed the hood of my sweatshirt where it had fallen off my shoulder. Her fingers brushed my neck. A second too long. A touch too familiar. We both froze. Then she whispered, "Good night," and walked away before either of us could ruin it further. The air she left behind felt charged, not with possibility, but with consequence. And I stood there, still tasting the silence between what almost happened, and what couldn't. Days passed in the rhythm of avoidance. Mina visited less often, but when she did, I found myself listening for Hannah's footsteps, the kettle whistle, the faint sound of her laugh, and then hating myself for doing it. I started leaving the apartment later in the mornings, just to avoid crossing paths. It didn't work. One evening, I found her outside, sitting on the front steps. A small mug in her hand, steam rising into the cold. She didn't look surprised to see me. "You're late," she said quietly, eyes fixed on the streetlights. "Stayed after work," I replied. "Didn't feel like going straight home." She nodded, her breath visible in the chill. "That's how it starts, you know. You avoid places that remind you of what you can't say." Her tone wasn't accusing. It was weary, like she was talking to herself as much as to me. We sat in silence for a while. The street was nearly empty, the air carrying that faint metallic scent before rain. "I saw Mina today," she said suddenly. "She said you've been distant." I didn't answer right away. I watched the light from her window flicker against the pavement. "Maybe I have," I said finally. Hannah turned, studying my face as if it might explain something she didn't want to name. "She cares about you," she said. I laughed under my breath, not mocking, just tired. "I know. She deserves someone who doesn't overthink everything." Her brow furrowed. "You're young. You're supposed to overthink. Is that what you tell yourself?" I asked. The words came out sharper than I meant. She blinked, once. "No," she said softly. "That's what I stopped telling myself a long time ago." The rain started then, slow drops, like the world easing into confession. She held her mug tighter. "I used to think loneliness was just quiet," she said. "But it's worse when someone else fills the silence, and you still feel it." Something in me cracked at that. I wanted to reach for her hand, or say her name, or do something that made sense of the last few months. Instead, I said, "You don't have to be alone in it." She exhaled, a sound halfway between a sigh and a laugh. "You don't understand. That's exactly what I can't afford, not to be alone in it." Her voice trembled then, just slightly, the first real break in her composure. We looked at each other, and the air thickened, the kind of silence that hums. Her hand shifted, almost brushing mine on the step. Then she whispered, "You remind me of how I used to feel before everything started making sense." It was the closest thing to a confession either of us had given. The rain was heavier now, soft against her hair, her coat darkening. I wanted to say something back, anything, but she turned to me, eyes glistening, and asked quietly, "Leo, what are we doing?" And I had no answer. Just the sound of rain, and the space between what we both already knew. The next few days, she disappeared. No morning glimpses through the window. No footsteps on the stairs. Even the plants she watered daily looked untouched. I told myself she was busy, maybe away visiting someone, but that lie thinned fast. Hannah didn't strike me as someone who left things undone. By the fourth day, the quiet started to ache. I found myself slowing at her door, half expecting to hear the clatter of dishes, her low hum under her breath. Nothing. When I finally saw her again, it wasn't planned. I'd come home early, and she was standing by her car, boxes in the trunk. Not the kind for travel, the kind for moving. "You're leaving?" I asked before I could stop myself. She froze, one hand gripping the edge of the trunk. "Just, staying with my sister for a while." Her tone was steady, but her eyes avoided mine. "Is this about?" "It's not about anything," she cut in. "Just time for a change." The lie was too clean. Too rehearsed. I stepped closer. "Did I do something?" She hesitated, just long enough to make me wish she'd said no faster. "You didn't do anything wrong, Leo. That's the problem." Then she smiled, a small, almost tender one. "You make things too easy to feel again. And that's not something I can afford right now." For a second, I thought I heard footsteps, Mina's laugh echoing faintly down the hall, but it was just the neighbor's TV. Still, it broke the air between us. Hannah closed the trunk. "I shouldn't have blurred the lines. You're a good man. You deserve something simple." "Simple's overrated," I said. Her eyes flicked up at that, a spark of pain or longing, I couldn't tell. Then she looked away. "You don't know what it's like to raise a daughter who brings home someone who reminds you what you gave up." The words hit harder than I expected. Before I could reply, she added quietly, "I thought I'd stopped wanting to be seen that way." For a moment, it wasn't about age or rules or guilt. It was about two people standing in the wreckage of something they never meant to start. That night, I sat at my desk, staring at my phone. Drafting a message. Deleting it. Drafting again. "I get it, but you don't have to disappear. I don't want anything from you, just the truth. Please don't go without saying goodbye." None of them sounded right. I left them all unsent. Outside, a car door shut softly. An engine turned over. I didn't move to the window. I didn't knock on her door. I just sat there, listening to the fading sound of her leaving, the echo of everything we didn't say, growing quieter until it was gone. And for the first time in weeks, the silence didn't hum. It just stopped. 2 months passed before I saw her again. Winter had thinned the air. The ivy on the stairwell had turned brittle, the pots outside her old door now empty. I still looked every morning, stupidly, as if habit might reverse her absence. Mina and I had drifted too. She transferred universities. We promised to stay in touch, then quietly stopped trying. There wasn't a fight, just a mutual understanding that something between us had shifted and stayed that way. And yet, even with that door closed, I couldn't shake the echo of the other one. It was late one evening when I ran into her again, the kind of accidental encounter that feels planned by everything you tried to avoid. I was coming out of the small grocery near the station, bag of cheap coffee and instant noodles in hand. She was there by the notice board, reading something under the yellow light. She looked almost the same, maybe a little thinner, maybe more tired. But when she saw me, her expression softened in a way that told me she hadn't forgotten either. "Leo," she said quietly. "You look older." I smiled faintly. "You look colder." That earned me a small laugh, fragile, like the first warm sound of spring. We ended up sitting on a nearby bench. She had a paper cup of tea, I had nothing but my words, which felt heavier than usual. "How's Mina?" she asked after a moment. "Good. We're not together anymore. I see. She didn't look at me, just stared out at the slow-moving traffic. I didn't mean for things to end like that. Between any of us. I know. Silence again, the kind that wraps around you, not to suffocate, but to make sure you're listening. Finally, I said, you didn't have to leave. I did, she replied. It was the only way I could stop wanting something that wasn't mine to want. Her voice cracked on the last word, almost imperceptibly. I swallowed hard. Did it work? She gave a tired smile. Some days. Other days I still think about your hoodie on the door. That stupid note I left. I looked down, then back up. I kept it. That startled her. You what? It's pinned above my desk. I hesitated. Because it felt like someone saw me. Not who I should be. Just, me. She closed her eyes, pressing her lips together like she wanted to stop something from escaping. When she finally spoke, it was almost a whisper. You were never the problem, Leo. I just didn't trust myself not to turn you into something you'd regret. Her eyes glistened in the cold light. I reached out, not sure if I meant to touch her hand or the air between us. She didn't move away. For the first time, we didn't need to fill the silence. When she finally looked at me, her smile was small, steady. Okay, she said softly, as if granting both of us permission to breathe again. And that was enough. Not closure. Not beginning. Just the quiet truth of two people who'd finally said what they'd been carrying, and chose, gently, to stop running from it. Spring came back without announcement. The ivy on the stairwell turned green again, and the air carried that faint scent of wet pavement and early sunlight. The building felt different now, lighter, somehow, though it was hard to tell if that was because of time or what had quietly healed in the months since she returned. She didn't move back into the same unit. Instead, she took the one at the end of the hall, the one with a smaller window but a wider view of the street. I helped her repaint it one weekend, pale gray walls, clean trim. She made me tea afterward. No words about what we were doing, just quiet cooperation, small brushes of hands, the sound of spoons clinking against ceramic. It wasn't romantic. It was ordinary. And maybe that was better. We built a rhythm, slow and careful. Some mornings, I'd see her at 8:47, always 8:47, locking her door before work. I'd nod, she'd nod back. Sometimes she'd hand me a thermos, black coffee, right? Sometimes I'd return it with a grocery bag I'd carried up for her, no thanks needed. It was a kind of companionship that didn't need definitions. One night, sitting again on that same bench near the station, she told me she'd started teaching part-time art classes. I forgot how much I liked the smell of acrylic, she said. I smiled. Guess I should start drawing again then. She tilted her head. Guess you should. That was it. The entire conversation. But somehow, it felt like a promise, not the kind people make out loud, but the kind they keep anyway. Sometimes Mina called. We talked politely. She was happy, seeing someone else. The first time I told Hannah that, she only nodded and said, good. Then after a pause, she needed to love someone uncomplicated. Her tone was calm, but I caught her reflection in the window, the faintest curve of her mouth that wasn't sadness or regret. Just quiet knowing. That night, I stayed for dinner. She didn't ask why, I didn't offer a reason. We ate in silence, until halfway through, she reached across the table, not for my hand, just for my cup. Too much sugar, she murmured, taking a sip to check. Her lipstick left a faint mark on the rim. I smiled. Now it's perfect. She didn't laugh, but the corner of her lip twitched, the smallest acknowledgement that she understood exactly what I meant. We never called it love. We just kept showing up, at the same time, in the same small ways. Shared tea. Black coffee. Quiet walks home under the same slow sky. And one morning, as I passed her by on the stairs, she said, "You look like you finally slept." I answered, "Maybe I did." She smiled, soft and certain. Good. For once, there was nothing left unsaid. Just two people who had weathered something unnamed, and somehow, still found each other in the calm after it. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next? Ones that hurt gently, or heal slowly? Tell me below.